Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Train Simulator Classic. Today we continue along our Pennsylvania Railroad DLC content and take a very, very far step back to the RSC K4 DLC. Yeah, very far back. This is one of the very first American steam locomotives released for Train Simulator Classic, back in the day known as Railworks. A little bit on the history. First, the the locomotives themselves were icons on the Pennsylvania Railroad. The K4 was one of their most numerous locomotives, and they did anything and everything. High-speed passenger services, freight, road switching, yard work, especially out here, just everything. This was one of their major designs that really stuck around for many, many, many years. I believe 2 or 3 of these still exist today, one of which was operational for a hot minute, and then I don't know entirely what happened. I know it got torn apart and pretty much left in pieces for a very long time, and it wasn't until, I believe, this past year, either earlier this year or this past year, that it was announced they were finally actually going to do something with it. So we may have another one operational before too long. Give me one moment, dig through my Pennsylvania Railroad number 1361. It was restored in 1987, but has been disassembled, and the project was officially abandoned in 2010. It lay in pieces for around 20 years. Wasn't it until relatively recently that they finally got back on track with restoration? But so before too long, we'll see one in operation again. But there's a second survivor at the Railroad Museum, or the Pennsylvania Railroad Museum in Strasburg, which is number 3750. It's a static display. So 2 of them do live. It's kind of crazy that only 2 live, though, considering how iconic these were. But not the first time that we've seen that happen in the United States. Many iconic designs still ended up scrapped, such as the New York Central Hudsons, ever famous around the world. So, if I remember right, these are one of the Pennsylvania Railroad's own shop-built designs. They're Juniata, sure. I'm from down south. You're supposed to. It's Juniata. I assume that's Juniata, but yeah, if I'm pronouncing that right, sorry guys, but so I believe their Juniata shops produced around 350 of them, while another 75 were produced by Baldwin Locomotive Works. These could run upwards of around 80 mile an hour, 80 to 90, somewhere in that happy range. But these have been around for a very, very long time in Train Simulator. These have been around Yeah, these came about the same time the Horseshoe Curve did. I think this is one of the very first DLCs made available for the Horseshoe Curve. So it's around 2012-ish. So right as Railworks turned into Train Simulator. So this has been around for a hot minute, and it hasn't seen an update since. So we're gonna try to be kind to it, knowing that it's a decade old, but no promises, because as we've seen all too often in Train Simulator, some things don't age too well. And this is one that I would be a liar if I said I came back too often. I really don't. This is one that's in desperate need of an update. What else is fun that we can talk about with these locomotives? Historically, I don't know. This is the post-war model. I can't push that out. So here's a pretty common across the board with the Pennsylvania Railroad, but most of their locomotives have a pre-war and a post-war appearance. Pre-World War II, post-World War II. One of those big changes will be the pilot here. You will not get a pre-war variant. All you will get with the pack is this K4. Now, all those years ago, if I remember right, this locomotive was like 20 bucks. But I do know it dropped down in price a pretty hefty bit. Pretty sure it dropped down to like $7, $8. Oh, yeah, that was right. Pull up the Steam page here. It was released February 9th, 2012. So this is well over a decade old. Woof. It's 11 years old. So, yeah, it shows it, too. For those of you that have been watching, you'll know I just got done with DSGDR's Pennsylvania Railroad items, and yeah, this thing doesn't hold a candle to him. I'm sorry, but it really doesn't. His stuff is aged pretty well. There is some polishing that his stuff could do now, but his stuff is aged pretty well. This thing hasn't. It really hasn't. So let's dive into it, shall we? So right off the bat, there's not a clean or weathered variant. There's no variants like whatsoever. It is just this locomotive right here, period. And you will get a handful of scenarios for the Horseshoe Curve with it. More often than not, you will have them paired up like this, so 2 and 3, which isn't uncommon for the later years. As larger 462s came along, larger locomotives in general, 482s and such, the K4s got pretty much taken off of a lot of the heavyweight high-speed services and such, because they're not all that powerful of a locomotive. By the end of World War II, I believe it was extremely common to see these paired up in 2s and 3s, because they don't have the tractive power. And it is translated into Train Simulator okay-ish. These are, again, not powerhouses in Train Simulator either, but I feel like they still feel very underpowered in Train Simulator. So I know with these 6-passenger cars here, it's a struggle to get up and down Horseshoe Curve. Yeah. So that's the sound. If you guys were wondering, that constant running sound, that's your mechanical stoker. It's not terrible. There's our injectors. Again, not horrible. So we are going to run with the F4 HUD because, yeah. It's dated. It's very dated. So, you can fiddle with the cab to an extent, but stick this against just about anything made in the last 5 years. Yeah, it doesn't. So we got our dampers here. We got a reverser lever here. Can't fiddle with the windows. Windows are open, so we're gonna be getting a little wet. Can't open the roof hatches. There's our whistle there. No bells, switches, or nothing. Can't fiddle with those. Those should be your marker lights and whatnot. Classification lights. One thing I do find kind of entertaining is, as you can see, the cab does overhang the tender. However, the cab does not overhang the tender. So that's a little entertaining. There's no cab light, and I will tell you that gets very annoying, because there are a bunch of scenarios where it's either dark or early morning, late in the afternoon, and this cab is very dark. Very, very, very dark. Especially if you have just stock, standard train simulator settings. You haven't fiddled with your settings much of or anything. It is extremely dark in this cab. And there's no cab lights or anything. So you will absolutely have to turn your contrast up to be able to see anything whatsoever, which is frustrating because there's a cab light. There's a bulb. It's right there. But as you can see, no switch, no nothing. Can't turn it on. So yeah, you will have to turn your contrast up. It does have in-cab signaling right here. It don't work. Our gauges. Can't fiddle with anything. Let's see. Should be our train brake, engine brake. Texturing is old. Very old. Sanders, firebox doors, very interesting. And we have no sound, no firebox sound. We don't have a center cab view. It is just a flat object with a texture placed over it. Here's your firebox handle, which is your stoker. And it's making a sound. And it's very hard to get this right. However, it's making the sound. And it doesn't translate. So, yeah, right off the bat, you will 100% have to run this locomotive with F4 HUD. There's no real reliable way to run this without it. Matter of fact, I don't know that you can use the injector levers anywhere. Live injector, exhaust injector. Here's our injectors. Cylinder cocks. That's unusual. Blower. Live water, exhaust water. Can't fiddle with that. Can't fiddle with anything down here. Sander again. Can't fiddle with anything down there. And our throttle. So we'll go ahead and kill off our brakes here. The brakes are backwards. It's kind of entertaining. Turn on our headlights here. Our lights control the marker lights. The marker lights come on with the headlights, which, no. It's just a really, really, really bright white LED that I can't stand, and it's got this weird little cross going on. The marker lights don't look bad as we roll backwards. I forget Crescent is on an incline. Cool. So you can't really set the locomotive brakes. They won't set. And we got our brakes set. We're just kind of very slowly inching backwards. Which, kind of entertaining. That's been a problem with this for a very, very long time though. Anyway, back to our detail looking. 10 years ago this was awesome. I won't lie, 10 years ago this was really, really, really nice overall. But it's mostly simple objects with textures placed over them. So you can barely make out the K4 builder plate here. The number plate doesn't look too terrible, but it's definitely a flat object. It doesn't have the ring going around here. All of our rivets are part of the texture. They're not actual rivets. All of our extra little bits and details are part of the texture. So like our boiler bands and such here. And even got a whistle cord. And overall, the locomotive in and of itself is just really, really, really dark. Now, there are a couple of repaints on Railworks America that really, really help. I do not have them placed here because they're not technically part of the pack, but I do remember a pack on Railworks America that repaints these. A fictional green, a fictional red, and then a cleaned up version of this. So it's got some nice polished drive rods and such so that you can actually kind of see what it looks like better. Now overall I don't hate the weathering per se, so if you're looking for like that late World War II, post World War II look, these locomotives would have been rode pretty hard by then, so they're gonna have a pretty dirty look overall. But I think in Train Simulator it doesn't translate all that well because just without turning your contrast up, it just overall looks really, really dark. It's hard to see much of anything on it without being, you know, right up on it. But it shows. It's not. It's one of them 10-foot paint jobs. It looks pretty good from 10 feet away. But you get up close to it and you start to see all of what hasn't aged well. Now granted, it kind of goes along with the horseshoe curves stuff. You know, like our rivets aren't on the P70s or anything here, but let's take it down the road, play with their sounds. It's actually one of my favorite bell sounds. I won't lie. I actually do like the bell sound. Doesn't change inside or out. Set like more iconic Pennsylvania bell. For those of you that remember the Clear Creek DLC and are curious as to where that whistle came from, there it is. The very unfortunate part is it's a drawn out whistle. So you can't play it. That's me literally tapping the space bar. We kind of got a short tooth there. Yeah. You can't play the whistle. It's a 1, 2, 3, almost 4-second loop. Words cannot describe how much I hate when they do that in Train Simulator. Especially on American content, because, you know, we have a bunch of different whistle codes, but just across the board, I really, really don't like it when they do that. It's another reason that I don't use this locomotive all that often, because that gets annoying very quickly. The whistle sound is not terrible. It has been reused a few times. This is the first locomotive that used it. But the sound itself is not bad. It's just that, you know, nearly 4-second loop that, God, it's annoying as hell. So let's take it down the road, though. It does take a second for our brakes to let loose. However, it does not take a second for steam to hit your wheel slip is kind of there. It's not extraordinarily noticeable. Sand noises are a little loud, and you don't get sand coming out of the sand pipe. I don't believe there's a running, it's just a hold spot for our brakes. It doesn't take much to slip the wheels. Like I said, these things are not extraordinarily powerful. With 6 cars, it's a struggle. At least they do have smoke coming out of the steam whistle. There's something. It's just one long drawn out whistle blow. Guess I should have checked to be sure my track was open before I come plowing down. It actually doesn't look too bad in operation, I will say. It actually is quite satisfying to watch the rods on this model. As long as you can get past the very dated textures. However, a wide open throttle, 25% reverser, and we can't climb a 1% grade. Getting past 20 mile an hour, and if we push our reverser back up much more, stick our J-bar up to 30%, we gain a little bit of speed, but we're eating our boiler pressure. Now, like I said, I've said it a couple times, I'm not a big Pennsylvania Railroad fanatic, so I don't know what these locomotives should be able to do specifically. I feel like 6 cars is a little bit pitiful, especially considering with the E6, while it will take a second to get up to speed, I can absolutely run the whole horseshoe curve with 6 cars on the E6s. So I don't know, I feel like these locomotives just feel a little underpowered. Now, spoiler alert, as this locomotive gets up to speed, it's going to have that same typical high-speed steam locomotive sound that just about every American steam locomotive has in railworks. So nothing necessarily special there. I would say this locomotive has aged about as well as the route that it's meant to go on. Because, yeah, Horseshoe Curve has not aged all that well over the years. It definitely shows. That's a pretty good looking locomotive. Overall, I mean, I say good looking. In my personal opinion, I really find Pennsylvania Railroad locomotives to be quite ugly. In huge part because of that. I don't know what it is, but bell pair fireboxes I find to just be outstandingly hideous. So if you go for a long pull on the whistle, yeah, the steam kind of comes and goes in interesting fashion. 20% J bar, we're doing 30 mile an hour with a wide open throttle, and we're still eating through our bullet pressure. Now we're starting to gain it back a little bit. Bump it up to about 25%. I don't think you're supposed to really drop down to 20. .26 and a full open throttle, and we're not. So yeah, this locomotive you almost always be double heading with, which for steam locomotives and trail works, it doesn't really work the way it should, in my opinion. I think one of the bigger issues with double heading in railworks is as you place these K4s down, they'll all be in sync. They'll chuff at exactly the same time, they'll roll it at exactly the same time, they'll pull in the exact same way, and it's just double heading steam locomotives in railworks just does not seem to play very well. So it's definitely a model that you would want to be double heading a lot if you plan to keep it just bone stock. I don't know if there's been a physics upgrade to it, like all of the, just about, I believe all of the G-Trax locomotives in for Railworks have had a physics update put out on Railworks America to resolve the fact that none of them could climb a hill with 10 cars. But I don't believe the to my knowledge, the K4 hasn't been touched really in general. It's not a model that I see all that often. I'm gonna run through the tunnel leaving Johnstown, so just hop down here. One of those visual issues with the Horseshoe Curve. Like I said, Horseshoe Curve is about as old as the model we're using right now, and it shows horribly. But yeah, to my knowledge, the K4 has not received really much of anything. I don't know that it's really gotten an upgrade at all. I know it hasn't seen an update, but I don't know that it's really gotten anything over the years. So there it is. Now we're finally hitting a level spot through this tunnel, and we can finally gain a little bit of go. There's the in-cab signaling. Now it kind of works. Can't really see the light bulbs behind, but you can see it lighting up. It's a pretty noticeable change from sound to sound. I don't think there's a 60-mile-an-hour limit anywhere on the horseshoe curve, but we're cruising along at 60, so it's fine. The smoke is entertaining too. So cut your throttle off, and you kind of get this like little. There's a little bit of a stream going on behind there, and then you open the throttle, and we get puff, and there it is. 12%, kinda. You don't get. Oh well, your smoke does interesting things if you don't have a wide open throttle. We are going to rip right off this track. Ah well, probably a good spot to end it. Oh, goodness gracious. Time flies when you're entertained, but yeah, the RSC K4 for the Pennsylvania Railroad, there it be. Like I said, you don't get anything else with the pack. You just get the K4. There are no rolling stock to go with it. You will get a handful of scenarios for the horseshoe curve, but for the price, especially if you get it on sale, it's really hard to complain. You get it on sale and it's like $5. So credit where it's due. For $5, it's not a bad model, but to say that it's aged would be an understatement. It's aged about as well as the Kuju SD40s have. I don't think you could really put an update out to help it much. The sounds themselves I don't hate. It's that long drawn out whistle I can't stand. I hate when they do that with a passion. So I do. That needs an update. And then just overall the visuals desperately need an update. And the physics could stand to be updated. But overall, it's not a terrible locomotive. Like I said, you can pick it up in the Steam store, especially during a Steam sale, for like $5. It's really hard to complain for $5. You can use it with just about anything. You can get away with just about anything. You can use these on a huge variety of the routes that are available now. So, yeah. If you're interested in the Pennsylvania stuff, it's one of those like OG must-haves. It is in the Steam store. Go check it out. I will see you guys next time.